is, of course, a tough topic for most pre-law students, being science, being physics, being space. So it's normal that it would give students trouble. You're not the only person who's had trouble with this one certainly. Now, as for the main idea, I could see it being hard to pre-phrase a main idea here. There's a lot of different topics they talk through and talk about. So a pre-phrase may not be the best way to approach this one. It might be better to work by process of elimination. But I can say that the first paragraph is going to be simply background. They mention Carroll and Chen throughout, so they're going to be the focus. The reference to other physicists in the second to last paragraph is not core to the passage. It's probably going to be scientists who disagree or have a slightly different focus or different take to give additional context. I'm talking about Garriga and Villain-Ken towards the end, but the focus is going to be on Carroll and Chen. And I would say maybe the question of entropy, since that gets a lot of attention. Entropy shows up from the third paragraph on. I mean, the third paragraph obviously gives it a focus. They give an example, which means it's taking up more space. But it's taking up more words in the passage. But I would actually say that if they're giving if they're making the effort to give examples, that indicates that it is important to them. We have entropy again in line 33. We have entropy again in line 48. So entropy isn't limited only to that third paragraph. And the fact that it continues appearing even beyond its initial reference suggests that it is important. And the real thing here is the creation of our universe. That's the question here. They start with the Big Bang, they continue with that, and then there's about how entropy relates to the creation of our universe. The idea that over time, things get more entropic, meaning more chaotic. We move from less entropy to more entropy over time. That's in a way assumed. And the fact that we would start from a low entropy starting point in line 33 to 34, that's suggested to be strange. And they contrast it with Carroll and Chen thinking the most typical starting point we would expect would be cold, empty, quiet, which then raises the question, well, how do we even get started? They're talking about our universe in particular, not the multiverse. And they say that with the second paragraph, lines 9 to 12. The question of the Big Bang is focused on our universe in particular. The Big Bang started being hot and dense. It was a small, hot, dense configuration, expanded rapidly. Massive inflation, boom. They're saying that it's actually strange that we started that way. They're not saying we didn't start that way. They're saying we did start that way, and starting that way as we did is extremely unlikely, because the most common condition we would expect to begin with is cold and empty. So it's a mystery. We don't have a resolution to it. But their innovation is to say that we're unique. It's unexpected that our universe would have began that way, yet it did. We don't have an answer on this, but it's a question they raise in their innovation. So in the biggest scale we can think of, which was the multiverse, within that, it's mostly empty space. But even in empty space, you have little bubbling ups of energy here and there. That little bubbling of energy in the multiverse is a small percentage, but to us, it's huge because we're tiny. So a little energy fluctuation from the viewpoint of, let's say, like a god, right? That would be nothing to them, but to us, it's the Big Bang for our universe's creation. So that's a temporary flicker in largely empty space. And that little flicker is a moment of temporary low entropy, where it's all starting from a little seed, and then it expands out. And so that fluctuation is the small, hot, and dense. And small, hot, and dense is actually low entropy. Yeah, that's confusing, because you would think if it's hot and small and dense, you might think that it's high energy compacted to a very small space. But with their analogy about objects getting moved around, what they're saying is that when everything is compact in a box, like let's say you've organized everything neatly, you fit all your belongings into one little box. That is low entropy, because entropy means things are all spread out, things are all chaotically laid out. So a messy room where all your clothes are all over the floor and all over the bed, that's high entropy. But if your clothes were all packed into one little suitcase, that's low entropy, because things are not moved around a lot. They're organized. They're more likely to be organized and orderly. It's important to slow down and get what entropy is about, because everything's based on that foundation. So in that third paragraph, when they say entropy, a measure of total disorder, that's a definition where you have that hyphen or em dash. They're defining what entropy is. You've got to slow down and get that. And the example here, it's taking up space, but it's actually, if you're not really getting what entropy is, it's useful to process that to say, okay, well, I've got a real world example now I can relate to understand what entropy is about. It's like I said, entropy is core to this passage. Like I said, it comes up in third paragraph and then is mentioned in subsequent paragraphs as well. There's so much going on here that it could be difficult to pre-phrase a main idea. I don't know that there's one particular line I would point to summarize it. But the question and the challenge here that they're raising is, how did our universe begin? Even just from the first two paragraphs giving us context. So the first paragraph is given, of course, we're not challenging that. We had the Big Bang. They say, Carol and Chen, who are the focus here, they're saying it wasn't unique. And we're talking about our universe, not the multiverse. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.